Hello, welcome to FederationX. I'm Rebecca.
I'm Iyad.
And I'm Emmanuel.
So,
All right.
what's next for after the war? When will the war end?
Well,
and what's next?
What's next is the status quo, the continuation of the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people.
No, that's not going to be next. That's not going to happen. I think the international community won't let that happen. Even if Israel wants to go back to the status quo very much. I think in Israel, even the Israeli politicians realize that they cannot go to the status quo. Some of them will want to very much, but I think a majority realizes that we can continue along the same way we did before, because the result was what the result was. So there is going to be change. I just don't know how fast.
How much of the cabinet is extreme right-wing, Emmanuel?
I'd say probably about 40%. On
Right.
some things, on some issues, the renouncing a Palestinian state. I don't think there's a single person in the cabinet who's in favor of a Palestinian state.
Yeah.
So I think the Americans can correctly say that this is the most conservative government we've ever had, and even Bibi doesn't want a Palestinian state.
So, I mean, I agree, unless the international community intervenes, right?
Yeah.
But what does an intervention look like? We saw what an intervention looked like in apartheid South Africa, right?
Well,
what does an intervention look like?
In South Africa, the main item preventing a serious intervention for many years was the Cold War. As long as the Cold War was going, South Africa was apartheid South Africa was a very important part of the wall against communism, so they could get away with anything. And only when the Cold War stopped in the late 80s, 89, then real boycotts could ramp up and cause serious damage, and South Africa had to respond.
And there's no similarity between the importance of Israel to America and the global South?
I think Israel is. I don't know. No, I think the picture is similar, but there's no single thing which will. There's nothing like the Cold War, which has to stop. To stop and will change the whole picture. The situation will. What Israel's policies are the only thing which will cause the Americans and also the Europeans to change their action.
I guess the point I'm making is what stopped South Africa in its tracks and created the change was the world divesting and boycotting out of South Africa, right?
Yeah, to a large degree.
Yeah.
And that could happen to Israel.
Yes.
It could happen,
yes.
Although it'll be more difficult, I think, to do it with Israel, because we have some things that the world wants very much, and we do have technologies and things like that. There's still very much in demand. No, but I agree with you that it's not something to count on. It's something which will progressively fade out.
Every politician wants to stay in their job, and if the people of the world are demanding change, politicians in every country have to oblige, right?
Oh yeah, it's obvious that we're losing public support, and I don't think there's awareness in Israel how much that is already happening.
Yeah. So to me, that's next. That's the snowball is already coming down the hill. Whether change happens in months or years, I don't put more than 5 years on it. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball.
No,
And
change will
Israelis are
come
just
quicker.
planning to see it.
Change I think change will come quicker. 5 years
Yeah.
is much too long. I don't think we can keep this going for 5 years.
And then to answer Rebecca's question, what does it look like? Well, it depends, I guess, on how many Palestinians are left standing on the ground, how many Israelis choose to move from Israel, and whether people are given equal vote. I don't see the settlements being dismantled and moved out.
Settlements
So
aren't going to be
one
dismantled.
country.
It's going to be a single country, and settlements aren't going to be, and it's going to be the federation is going to be very likely to be to this or that extent being implemented.
So it all depends on, neither the Palestinians are certainly not going to go anywhere except in a coffin.
Yeah, Israelis aren't, other than those who are going to leave because they can't stand the situation. Israelis aren't going to leave either.
Yeah, and the question is, how many Israelis are prepared to live under equality in one country?
I think many are probably willing to try. I'm not. What's if the alternative is to continue fighting all the time, or to leave Israel? I think most of them would choose trying it out under certain circumstances. We have to make it sound good.
Well, this is also what many of the early Zionists had discussed would be the arrangement. And so in a sense, it is reverting back to their original thinking about what would happen.
Yeah, Zionists considered federation when there was no chance of a Jewish majority. Okay, so that was at the time that was one of the considerations. And actually, the UNSCOP, the United Nations Special Committee on Palestine's recommendation, the second choice after the partition proposal was a federation.
Yeah.
So it's all been there, and I heard when I was on my fundraising trip to Estonia, I heard that the former foreign minister of Switzerland is in favor of a federation in Israel-Palestine. So we're trying to connect to her to find out what exactly she has in mind.
It's a good idea. All right. Well, that's encouraging to hear.
Yeah. So there is beginning interest abroad also.
Yep. So let's assume for a minute that boycotts, sanctions, divestments start early. They start now. How long do you think it'll take before Israel capitulates?
No, Israel isn't going to capitulate.
Well, when I say capitulate, I mean it says, all right, let's bring in the vote. Let's be inclusive. Let's take away this notion. It's going to be very slow.
It's going to be very slow, unless there is a very strong leadership, and that doesn't look like we have anything coming up right now. It's going to be responding very, very slow. The beginning, initially, it'll be denial, okay, because boycott BDS has been around for a long time and hasn't been particularly successful. So people are going to say, it's more of the same. It's not going to do anything. And then you can have certain instances of companies, boycotting, which will make a difference, and people are going to have to realize that something is actually happening, and then things may speed up, but it's going to be a long process.
Doesn't a slow process bode poorly for the Israeli population?
Yes.
Like if I had dual citizenship, I'm in Israel, and I could see that my country is going to die in 1,000 cuts, I'd be moving personally.
Yeah,
Right.
they're going to be. Yeah, they're going to be quite a few people are going to be moving. I agree, and that will have an impact.
Fast change is better for Israel than slow. It's actually better for both sides, but yeah. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
but
it will be what it will be.
it will be what it'll be. Exactly.
Yeah.
There
But I
were.
think we're both.
Go ahead.
I think we're both in agreement.
Yeah.
Right. In what happens, they'd probably have to a peacekeeping force would have to probably come in because you couldn't trust the IDF to, or the Palestinians couldn't to. And Israel has all the police force. It has all the resources.
We will. I think we have an interest in bringing in other forces. I don't think, although Israel, in terms of security, would like to maintain its security in the Gaza Strip. I don't know whether that's feasible.
I don't think it is.
No, I just don't know.
I mean, just remember the whole issue revolves around Gaza now, right?
Yeah.
So the first resolution is going to be start from Gaza down to the West Bank, down to East Jerusalem, and then within Israel.
I think
it's not going to work any other way.
It's going to be very interesting how the Palestinians play that, because if they play it very well, if they play their unity card, Israel is going to have a hard time dealing with it.
Well, the Palestinians have always said we are one people. I mean, you and I had that discussion on that podcast the other day, right?
Yeah, they're one people, but Hamas and Fatah don't get their act together. Haven't gotten their act together, even now not.
Have you read the Hamas charter?
I've only heard about the Hamas charter, but I don't want to get involved with the Hamas charter. I think it's just a waste of a time to deal with it.
You do understand its beef is with Zionism. It wants the 67 borders, and it wants peace and equality. That's what the Hamas charter says.
Okay, well, not the ones that we're being dished out.
That's exactly right, because what Israel keeps pointing at is the Hamas charter from 1980, which says from the river to the sea.
Yeah.
But the Hamas charter from 2017 is not really any different to what the Fatah charter says, right?
Okay, what's the difference? That's what Bibi is trying to say, that Hamas and Fatah are one and the same thing.
Yeah, so they want the 67 borders. I want, if it's two states, the 1948 border or better. Right? Yeah. So they're more tame than me in that regard.
Okay. If you have it in English, send me the Hamas charter, the 2017.
It was on Wikipedia. I think I might have saved it in PDF on one of my posts. I'll find it, and somebody's taken it off Wikipedia.
Oh, that's interesting. Too close for comfort.
Yeah. All right.
That's interesting.
But it's very clear.
Maybe Hamas took it off. Maybe Hamas took it off.
Yeah, I'll get a copy of it. There's no question. I'll get you a copy of it, and I'll send it to you.
That's interesting. I keep telling people, everybody comes up with tells me how the Hamas charter is calling for genocide and killing and Jews are swine and pig and so on and so forth. And I keep telling people, is that the same Hamas that we were doing business with for the last 5 years and paying them off? Yeah. These charters are useless. Nobody works according to charters.
It's actually the Likud charter that's very scary.
Yeah, the Likud charter is one from the river to the sea.
Exactly right. That's the scary one.
Yeah.
It's not the Hamas charter.
Yeah, but that's different.
Bibi has given some lip service to two-state. There was a speech where he did say he was committed to two-state solution.
Bar Ilan.
Yeah, Bar Ilan. And then the Trump peace plan was technically, if you squint, a two-state solution. even if it was a very inadequate one. So if you wanted to cherry pick things out of Likud that were committed to two-state, you could do that. And I would say something similar about Hamas. If you wanted to cherry pick things out of Hamas that were committed to two-state, you could do that. But neither of them seem committed to two-state.
But what makes people think that Hamas aren't committed to two states? I don't get it. To me, that's just Israeli rhetoric. I have never seen anything in recent memory, not from their start, in recent memory, that doesn't say they want to work together and create a solution.
Okay,
No,
so two-state is based on the premise that the borders roughly correspond to the 67 borders. Now, on 10/7, Hamas had many opportunities to attack military targets, not civilians, but that is what they chose to do, to attack civilians. And there was the rhetoric that there's not really a distinction because this was the Palestinians' former land, and that they're all settlers / military, and that there are not really civilians in Israel.
And that's all we're hanging on to. But the
but
idea
that's quite a lot when when so many people get killed.
But the idea if every day of the year kills Palestinians, whether it's 10 or whatever, it's literally every day of the year, civilians, takes them, tortures them, throws them in prisons, shoots them indiscriminately, right? But that's all right. But because October 10/7 happened in a day, right, as a single reprisal against every day of the year for 75 years. If you want to condense it down, you can bring it down to 56 years. And we don't see that it didn't happen in a vacuum or a bubble. And in fact, if you compared the two, you'll see that 10/7 is quite insignificant, right? Because the Palestinians are living a torturous life every day of their lives. Generation after generation.
I think you are straw manning what you hear on the other side of this conversation.
I'm speaking from physical experience that I've gone through as a kid, that my parents went through, that my own family goes through every day in Palestine, right? This is the reality. Israelis live in a bubble in Israel. They're shielded from the reality.
Iyad is right. I mean, it's the context. This is the context. Okay, the fact that we downplay the context and we play up the massacre conducted by Hamas, seemingly out of the blue, completely unexpected. How could such a thing happen? That's our story. But
Hamas did not act out of the blue. Hamas was very seriously provoked by the occupation.
Yeah.
There is no excuse for the occupation. There is no excuse for 10/7. People, I think they need to keep both.
There are explanations for 10/7, not excuses. No excuses.
There are no excuses. But people.
There's no excuses for either, right?
Yeah.
The occupation has to end. The indiscriminate killing of Palestinians every single day of the year has to end.
Yeah.
The checkpoints have to end, right? The craziness has to end.
I agree. That's what we're working on.
Yeah.
That's what we're working on. We're trying our best. I hope our best is good enough. And I hope we get support from the public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, should we call it a day?
Yes.
Yeah,
thank you for this conversation. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for joining in, Emmanuel. I know you had the drive and all the rest of it.
Thank you.
Thanks for changing the date so we can do it now.